outcome within a performance. And performances can mean a pitch shot to a hole, it can mean a putt, anything. So it's not just how you play on the golf course, it's the way you train each day. David and I have talked to you at length about being more involved in each golf shot, really studying what's going on. When you execute a shot, notice what it's doing. Really get involved with what's actually happening there. So you're doing a better job of being involved in the process and the outcome that you're getting. Because if you identify the things that are going on within the shot, you're much more engaged in what you're doing. If you're just hitting shots mindlessly and you're looking at where the balls are going in relation to the target, that would be one way of focusing on it. But to be more involved is to understand what the feel of the shot was like, where you want it to land, how you want it to land, what trajectory you're going to use, what kind of club would be the best club to use. We don't mind, as you know, that we can change clubs. We can go from one club to another to find that ideal shot. We just want to keep moving towards the best outcome. So this vital few equation talks about the X's within a performance, the variables that are affecting your performance. And we're talking about primarily the high end. The distinction we make in Pro Tour golf colleges, we're focusing on the high-end score, that is your high score average, not your low score average. Whenever people are playing well, low score is easy, whatever low score is for them. It's the high score that stops young male and female professionals and amateur players from living their dream and becoming a tour player. So what do we need to do to lower the low score? We've got to identify these variables. You've got to look closely at what you're doing each and every day. So when you're going through your training process each day, you're identifying factors within the shots that you're playing that are definitely holding you back. And it could be a shot out of a long grass. It could be a bunker shot. It could be any type of, and when we talk about it, we want to be specific. Obviously, identifying variables means we've got to dig down deep into the particular shot and find out what about that shot it is that we're not happy with. For some people, for instance, if you throw a ball in the bunker and it sits down in a little bit of a cuppy lie, they don't like that shot. Well, is that going to be, if you got one of those in a tournament, is that going to affect your performance? Absolutely. If you never practice that shot, because, for instance, you're someone who always props it up onto the top of the sand, then that's going to find you out when you're out performing on the golf course. Or, you know, you're putting it up on a good lie when you're hitting golf shots, chips and pitches. Now, we do that a lot. You know, we're talking to people about that all the time. That's why we like you to drop the ball or throw the ball into a place. So sometimes it's not going to always roll where you want it to roll. The thing is, you want to be able to play these shots so that when you're confronted with it, it makes a difference at the end of the day. So this equation is quite simple when you look at it. All right, the vital few equation says that for any outcome that you're striving to achieve, there are going to be some variables, some factors that are going to affect that outcome. Right? And they're going to be consistent, but there's probably not going to be more than 5 of them, all right, in any performance. So you need, right now you would have written them down on your sheet and you've got more of an idea about it, which is fantastic. So that's that aspect of the performance. And you need to do this every day. We train 5 days a week and we spend 5 to 6 hours or more out there every day. And the hardest thing to do is to concentrate on what we're doing, is to do a really good job over each golf shot, which is why we break it down into sets of 10 golf balls. That's the reason that we do that, is so that you can concentrate on 10 balls within a set. Now, if you don't do a very good job of that, halve it to 5 balls. And just work on 5 and then another 5 and another 5. You'll get through the same workload, but it might be easier for you to work with that. And out of those 5, it gets down to 1 golf ball. And how good a job you do with that, whether you're driving the ball, or pitching the ball, or playing a sand shot, or putting. And we can't emphasize that enough. That really is what as I said, the thrust of this college is about focusing on the factors that influence high score average. Okay? Alright, the next part of our talk is on another simple formula from a very famous book called The Inner Game of Golf, written by Tim Galloway. He first of all wrote a book called The Inner Game of Tennis back in the 70s, and then he followed it up some years later with a book called The Inner Game of Golf. And what I liked about that particular book was he had very simple ways of explaining mental processes. And one of the things he had for tennis was to get people to focus on a particular shot. He taught, because he was a tennis coach, He taught people when they were playing a tennis shot to go bounce, hit. So they would say that to themselves, the ball would hit the court and they would go bounce, hit. And they got into this habit of responding to the bounce and then making a stroke. And he found that he could get his students to make significant progress because they weren't thinking about all the things they were doing wrong. Because as we know in golf and lots of other things, it's easy to focus on the negative. Really easy to focus on the negative. Really easy to focus on why am I hitting that tee shot all over the golf course? Why am I hitting it straight? Rather than the focus on what do I need to do to be able to hit the golf ball consistently straight. Where we reframe the question and reframe it in our mind so that we get a better outcome. It certainly starts with a better process to go through. So Tim Galloway, he talks about performance equals potential minus interference. In other words, your ability to perform is only as good as your ability to not be distracted in the performance. And this gets back to what we said about the vital few factors. If you're weak in any one of those areas, that could be a distraction for you. Because if you stand up to a shot that you don't feel comfortable playing, then that's going to mean at the end of the day you're going to be distracted and you will not get your best performance out of yourself by being that way. So Galloway talked about the fact that you had to learn to remove interference. And you do that by understanding the process that you're going through to be able to execute the shot the way you want. And the way you get better at that is to understand precisely what you are trying to do with your golf shot. So for instance, when we go through the routines, the greenside routines, and you're standing to the side of the ball, both Dave and I would expect you to know exactly what you want to do with the shot. Exactly what you want to do. So if we walked up to you and said, Sam, what are you going to do with this golf shot? You would be able to explain it out very clearly. Now, what we talk about is expanding mental maps. You've heard us talk about that before. In other words, every type of shot that you have kind of a map in your head of how you go about it. And we want to expand that map, or if you like, give you more choices and more options. If you're limited with your options, then you're limiting your performance potential. Does that make sense? If you limit your options, you limit performance potential. You need to be able to focus on those things that make you better. So when you look at your skills, how do you expand your map? You look at the different types of shots you can play. If you get too much like you're just going to hit 10 balls and it's always going to be the same, my question to you would be, how do you get better at that? Yes, you can get good at that one routine of hitting the ball a certain way, but then what do? What if you need to do it differently? Talking to James yesterday, we were playing a pitch shot, and I just said to James, can you change that shot up a little bit? Could you play that same shot a little bit differently? Because the ball wasn't landing in the right place and it wasn't finishing where he wanted it. So what would be the variable in that performance? So what was the variable for you, James, that made the difference?
Just playing it a bit differently.
Yeah, you had to play the shot differently, not play it the same way.
Maybe further.
Right. How many times do you guys get caught out where you're just playing the shot the same way all the time? And sometimes we'll just stroll up to you and say, you know what, why don't you just change that club or change the way you play the shot? That's how you expand your mental map.
Yeah, I mean, it's like from that trouble lie the other day, where you and Ronaldo were basically trying to land it short in the rough and bounce it on because that was the only shot you had. So we changed how you actually could play the shot slightly differently on the release pattern, created a different flight, and suddenly now I can land it on the green. That's much easier than trying to land it in the rough. But you guys got that shot where sometimes it's a bad lie, the only shot you've got is to land it in the rough. So you got that shot, so what did you do? You added another shot from that position. So you found you could land it more on the green. Remember the trouble shot, big shot there, and same with BJ. So guess what? You've got another strategy for another situation, and you've now got 2 shots to play with. And by next week there might be 3 shots that you can play, because those situations will change, because the rough might be a bit longer, or the ball sitting a little bit more down, and then you've got to be able to adjust and select the right type of shot to play for that condition.
Does that make sense? So again, have a look at that. Have a look at that formula down midway down your page. Just look at that for a second and ask yourself this question: how do I influence my performance in a negative way when I'm playing well? What is the difference between playing well and when I don't think I'm playing well? What goes on? What's different? What do I get distracted with when I'm not playing well that I get less distracted with when I'm playing well? Does that make sense? What is it about your performance that changes? Again, let's not be general about this. You need to be really specific about it. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to think about the times when you're not playing your best, when you're moving towards your high score average. And I want you to think about the interference or distraction that you sometimes have. Now, I know it's similar to what we talked about with the vital few variables, all right? But those are the things that actually help you to play better, not worse. We're looking for the skills, be it external, things physical or internal, that make you better. And in this case, we're looking at the distractions. What are the things that go on when I'm not playing my best? Now, the reason we want to do this is so we can find the best strategy for moving you towards better outcomes. Again, we're trying to move always towards better outcomes. We don't want to get bogged down with what the problems are. We want to identify the problem quickly and move in the direction of better results. All right, so take your time now to write down some of the key distractors in your performance, and let's see what we can do from there.
So that's interference.